Welcome, operatives, to the Corporate Files Lab, case file #009. Today's intelligence briefing, the Asian pivot, Africa's new offshore empires.
It really does sound like a thriller, doesn't it? Something you'd see on a bookshelf.
It really does. But the intelligence we're dissecting today, it's far from fiction. It's very real. And honestly, it completely rewires the map of global finance most of us have in our heads.
That's the perfect way to put it. It's a rewiring. Or maybe you're replumbing.
A replumbing. I like that.
Yeah, because for the last, 50 or 60 years, if you were a wealthy individual or a major corporation in Africa, the pipes all flowed in one direction.
North.
Always north. To London, to Geneva, maybe a quick stop in Jersey or the British Virgin Islands. That was the established model, the Western offshore system.
Make your fortune in Kinshasa, bank it in Zurich. That was just how it was done.
It was the default. But our mission today is to analyze why those pipes have been, ripped out and rerouted east.
And our primary source for this deep dive is a major study out of Oxford by Ricardo, Soares, Oliveira. But we're also pulling from a whole stack of supporting Intel FATF reports, leaked property data, that sort of thing.
And the central thesis is pretty stark. The old Western model is being actively abandoned by African elites. It's being superseded, and fast, by a new axis: Dubai, Singapore, and Hong Kong.
Okay, so before we jump in, let's do a quick tone check. We're looking at an annual capital flight of $88.6 billion. That number is just staggering.
It is.
But we're not here to moralize. Our job is to be clinical.
Exactly. This is a dissection. We need to understand the mechanics. How does that $88 billion actually move? Where does it go? And maybe most importantly, why is it no longer going to the places it used to? Because if you don't get the mechanics, you miss the entire geopolitical shift.
I agree. So let's start there. Section 1 of the briefing. The $88.6 billion hemorrhage, that number, it's from the UN, cited in the Oxford study. How do you even get your head around a number that big?
You really can't. It's like the entire GDP of, say, Ethiopia just vanishing every single year. It's not just loose change. It's a systemic industrial-scale transfer of a continent's wealth.
So why the change? Why abandon London? I mean, for decades, a townhouse in Belgravia and a Swiss bank account were the ultimate status symbols.
They were. But they're not necessarily leaving because they want to. In many cases, they're being pushed.
Pushed out.
Think about what happened after the 2008 financial crisis. The entire regulatory environment in the West, in the OECD countries, it just tightened like a vice.
Right, all the new anti-money laundering laws, the KYC rules.
Exactly. Suddenly you have things like unexplained wealth orders in the UK. You have these colossal fines being handed out to major banks, HSBC, Danske Bank, billions of dollars for compliance failures.
So the banks just got scared.
They got terrified.
Yeah.
And the new buzzword became de-risking.
De-risking.
Imagine you're a compliance officer at a big bank in London. A new client wants to open an account. He's from, let's say, the Democratic Republic of Congo. He wants to deposit $50 million.
Okay. Pre-2008, you'd roll out the red carpet. Post-2008, alarm bells are screaming in your head. The cost of doing the due diligence on that client, the paperwork to prove to the regulators that his money is clean, it's astronomical.
It's just not worth the hassle.
It's a simple cost-benefit analysis. The fees you might make are dwarfed by the potential $100 million fine if you get it wrong. So it became easier and cheaper for the banks to just say no.
So they're not even making a judgment on whether the money is dirty or not. They just don't want the headache of finding out.
Precisely. It's reputational risk management. We've seen legitimate African business people with clean money, having their accounts closed in London or Paris just because their file was too complicated. They face visa rejections, suspicion at every turn. You walk into a bank in Geneva with a complex transaction from Nigeria, you're treated as a suspect first and a client second.
And that creates a vacuum, doesn't it? All that capital needs a home. And if London and Zurich have no vacancy signs up, then you look for a new hotel. And that's the pull factor. That's the Asian pivot, or what the study calls the post-West business arrangement.
A whole new ecosystem.
A whole new ecosystem.
Yeah.
And the value proposition from Dubai, Singapore, and Hong Kong is fundamentally different. It's, let's call it efficiency over ethics.
So no lectures.
No lectures about good governance or ESG targets or human rights in your home country. The question isn't, where did you get this money? The question is your paperwork in order? And the definition of in order is just much more accommodating.
It's fascinating because you keep hearing this narrative in the West about de-offshorization, that the walls are closing in on tax havens.
It's a complete illusion.
But the offshore world isn't shrinking at all.
It's not shrinking, it's migrating. It's like squeezing a balloon. You press down on the Caribbean and Switzerland, and the air just rushes over to the Gulf and Southeast Asia. The network is alive and well. It's just operating in a different time zone now.
And the undisputed capital of that new time zone is Dubai. Section 2 of our brief. Dubai, the golden linchpin. The source material calls it Africa's New York. That's a huge statement.
It is, but in terms of its relevance to African elites, it's not an exaggeration. See, the old tax havens, the Caymans or the BVI, they were just mailboxes, legal fictions. You didn't live there. You didn't vacation there.
Right, it was just a brass plate on a lot office door.
Exactly. Dubai is different. It's a physical destination. It's where you live, where you shop, where you set up your actual corporate headquarters. It's a lifestyle.
The numbers are pretty stark. The report says there are over 26,000 African firms now registered in the Dubai Chamber of Commerce.
26,000. It's a corporate stampede. And we're not just talking about shell companies. We're talking about Africa's biggest banks. Standard Bank, Access Bank, Zenith Bank. They're all setting up major operations in the DIFC.
The Dubai International Financial Center.
Right. And this is a really critical point. We need to drill down on why a legitimate bank would move. It's not just to be closer to their clients' new villas.
There's a deeper structural reason.
A massive one. It all comes down to the cost of capital. This gets a little technical, but it's the engine room of this whole thing.
Okay, walk me through it.
Let's say you're a big Nigerian bank and you're based in Lagos. You need to borrow $100 million on the international markets to fund your operations.
Standard procedure.
Okay. You'll pay the base interest rate, which is currently SOFR, plus a country risk premium. Because you're based in Nigeria, the market see you as higher risk. So you might end up paying SOFR plus 7 or even 8%.
That's a huge premium. It must kill your margins.
It crushes them. Now, take that exact same bank. Open a branch in the DIFC in Dubai. The DIFC is what's called a separate legal jurisdiction. It basically operates under English common law, not UAE law.
So it's like a little piece of London in the desert.
Legally speaking, yes. So now, when the international markets look at your DIFC branch, they don't see Nigerian risk anymore. They see a stable, well-regulated jurisdiction. That risk premium collapses.
So what's the new rate?
You could be borrowing at SOFR plus 3%, maybe 4.
Wow. So you're saving 3 or 4 percentage points just by having a different address on your letterhead.
On a $100 million loan, that's $3 to $4 million a year in pure extra profit. It's a no-brainer. You're effectively stripping the Africa risk off your balance sheet while still serving your African clients. It's genius.
That's the legitimate side of it. But the briefing gets a lot darker when we start talking about commodities, specifically gold. The section is called the Smelt and Ship Gold Pipeline.
This, for me, is the core mechanic of the whole laundromat. The key statistic here, and you have to let this one sink in, is that Dubai now accounts for 95% of the illegal gold trade from East and Central Africa.
95%. That's not a market share. That's a monopoly.
It's a complete monopoly on illicit gold. To understand how it works, you have to follow the journey of the metal. Imagine you're a warlord in Eastern Congo, or a corrupt official in Sudan, or just an artisanal miner in Zimbabwe. You have raw gold.
It's valuable, but it's also tainted.
It's legally dirty. It has no papers, no certificate of origin. And what most people don't know is that raw gold, what they call doré bars, has a unique chemical fingerprint.
A fingerprint?
Yeah, the specific impurities in the gold can be traced back to the exact mine it came from. If you take that raw gold to a refinery in Zurich, they'll test it. They'll see the fingerprint, ask for the paperwork, and if you can't prove it's from a legitimate source, they won't touch it. They don't want blood gold on their books.
Okay, so Zurich's is a dead end.
But Dubai is not. For years, the sourcing requirements there were, let's just say, more flexible. So the gold is flown in, and often it's by hand carry.
Wait. You mean literally in a guy's carry-on luggage?
Literally. There are networks of couriers flying commercial from places like Entebbe or Harar to Dubai with, 50 kilos of gold in a reinforced backpack.
That can't be legal.
Here's the crazy part. It's not smuggled in the way we think of smuggling. They arrive at Dubai Customs and they declare it. They say, I have 50 kilograms of gold. But the key was that customs officials didn't require proof of where that gold was mined.
So you just walk through.
You walk through. Then the gold goes to a refinery in one of the free zones. And this is where the alchemy happens. This is the smelting part of smelt and ship.
The laundering.
You take that conflict gold from the DRC.
Yeah.
You take some other gold, maybe some scrap jewelry from India, some recycled electronic components. You throw it all into a crucible, and you melt it down together.
And what does that do?
It homogenizes the metal. It destroys the chemical fingerprint. You're literally melting away the evidence. You're deleting the metal's history.
So it's forensically clean now.
Exactly. Then they pour it into a new standardized bar, and it gets a stamp from the Dubai refinery. At that moment, its origin is no longer Congo. Its origin is Dubai. It's now officially recycled gold.
And once it has that Dubai stamp,
You can sell it anywhere. Back to Switzerland, to India, to the big tech companies for their circuit boards. It's been washed. And the money you receive for it is now clean money in a Dubai bank account.
it's so brutally simple. You don't need hackers or complex shell corporations. You just need a very hot furnace and a jurisdiction that looks the other way.
That's the secret sauce, a permissive point of entry.
But the briefing notes that the money often doesn't just stay as cash in the bank. It gets turned into something more tangible. It gets turned into concrete.
Yeah, this is where the Dubai Unlocked and Sandcastle's data leaks come in. These were huge journalistic projects analyzing property records. And they revealed a fascinating pattern. For many African elites, buying a $5 million apartment in the Burj Khalifa isn't about having a nice place for a holiday.
It's a safe deposit box with a view.
It's a store of value. It's a physical asset that's much harder to trace and seize than a bank account. And the data showed this incredible anomaly. You have people from some of the world's poorest countries, Sierra Leone, Mozambique, holding a disproportionately huge amount of Dubai real estate compared to their home country's GDP.
It's a clear indicator of capital flight. The wealth of the nation is literally being poured into skyscrapers in the desert.
And for a long time, the enabler was the cash economy. You could literally walk into a developer's office with a suitcase full of cash and buy an apartment. No questions asked.
So if you're a corrupt minister who skimmed $10 million off a public works project, you can't put that in a Swiss bank anymore. But you could buy a floor of an apartment building in the Dubai Marina.
That was the model. And once you own the property, you have a clean asset. You can sell it a few years later and get a legitimate check from a real estate company. You've just performed another layer of laundering. The money's source is now property sale.
This leads us right into the next section of the file, which is maybe the most unsettling. Section 3, the safe haven paradox, or as it's subheaded, immunity as a service.
Right. This is Dubai's ultimate unique selling proposition. It's not just about hiding your money. It's about hiding yourself.
What do you mean by that?
Look, if you hide your money in the Cayman Islands and the U.S. Department of Justice comes calling with a warrant, the Caymans will eventually cooperate. They have to. They're a British overseas territory, Dubai. Dubai offers physical safety from prosecution. The study quotes someone saying, if based there, the rich and powerful are almost certain to escape legal prosecution at home.
It's a sanctuary state.
It functions as one, yes. And we have some very high-profile case studies to back this up. First up, Isabel dos Santos.
The princess. The daughter of Angola's longtime former president. For years, she was celebrated as Africa's richest woman, a self-made entrepreneur.
That was the narrative. But then her father left office. The new government came in and started opening the books. And they alleged her entire fortune was built on sweetheart deals, on siphoning money from the state oil and diamond companies.
So the walls started closing in. Her assets in Europe and Portugal were frozen.
And where did she go? Not London, not Lisbon. She relocated herself and her business operations to Dubai. And she's still there, living openly, despite an Interpol red notice for her arrest. Angola wants her back. But as long as she stays in the UAE, she is effectively untouchable.
And then you have the Gupta brothers. That case is even more shocking in some ways.
The Guptas are the textbook definition of state capture. These three brothers basically took control of the South African state under President Jacob Zuma. They were directing government contracts, appointing ministers. It was brazen.
And when that whole corrupt enterprise came crashing down, they fled.
Straight to Dubai. And South Africa spent years meticulously putting together an extradition request. They followed every single rule, every treaty. It was a huge national priority to bring them to justice.
And I remember the headlines. The UAE arrested them. It looked like it was actually going to happen.
It did. For a moment, they were taken into custody. And then, a few months later, a UAE court quietly denied the extradition request, citing a technicality, a paperwork error, they claimed.
A paperwork error on a case that important.
It was a diplomatic slap in the face to South Africa. but it was also a powerful signal to every other corrupt official in the world. If you make it here, we have the power and the will to stonewall even a friendly government. We can protect you.
So they're literally selling sovereignty as a luxury product. Buy our real estate, use our banks, and we will shield you from the rule of law.
It creates this profound culture of impunity. The file mentions former presidents from Madagascar, Nigerian politicians like James Ibori, key figures from Zimbabwe's elite. They all use the emirate as a base.
There's a quote in here from an East African lawyer that's just brutal.
I know the one you mean. All of Africa's garbage is in Dubai.
It's so blunt.
It's harsh. And to be fair, Dubai is also a huge, legitimate hub for global trade. It's a logistics marvel. We can't just paint the whole place as a criminal enterprise. But the lawyer's point is that for a certain class of person, it has become the preferred destination for their garbage.
But surely the international community has pushed back against this. Which brings us to Section 4, the geopolitical swap. This is about the FATF gray list.
Yes. This is where the story pivots from financial crime to a high-stakes game of global chess.
So, FATF, the Financial Action Task Force, they're the global watchdog for money laundering.
Based in Paris, they set the international standards. And in 2022, they finally lost patience and put the UAE on their gray list.
Which is a very big deal. It's a black mark.
It's a huge badge of shame. It tells the world's financial system this country is not doing enough to combat illicit finance. It drives up the cost of doing business, makes international banks wary. The UAE absolutely hated it. They put on a full court press to get off that list.
And in early 2024, they succeeded. They were removed.
They were. And the official story is that they cleaned up their act, they passed some new laws, tightened some regulations, made a few arrests. And they did do some of that, on paper.
But the briefing suggests there was something else going on, a transaction.
Look at the timing. They're on the list from 2022 to 2024.
Yeah.
What was the single biggest geopolitical event happening in the world during that exact window?
The Russian invasion of Ukraine?
And the resulting energy crisis in Europe.
Right. Germany was desperate for gas. All of Europe was scrambling to get off Russian energy.
Exactly. They were facing a cold winter and a massive economic shock. They needed new, reliable suppliers of liquefied natural gas, LNG. And who's one of the world's biggest players in LNG?
The Gulf states, the UAE and Qatar.
The UAE. The analysis in the source material points to a quid pro quo. Suddenly, the very European nations that are usually the loudest champions of financial transparency, France, Germany started lobbying for the UAE to be taken off the gray list.
Wait, they were arguing on Dubai's behalf?
That's what the intelligence suggests. The theory is that they needed to secure those long-term energy contracts more than they needed to make a stand on money laundering. Energy security trumped financial purity.
That is just pure, cold, realpolitik.
It's the definition of it. Help us keep our lights on and we'll help you get this embarrassing gray list problem to go away. Transparency groups were absolutely furious, said it was a premature political decision, but it worked. The UAE got the clean bill of health it wanted.
So that's Dubai. Loud, flashy, and now geopolitically protected. But it's only one part of this pivot. Let's talk about Section 5. Hong Kong, the secretive gatekeeper.
Hong Kong plays a completely different role in this ecosystem. It's not the place African elites go to retire or shop.
So they're not buying apartments in mid-levels.
No, it's too far, too expensive, culturally very different. Hong Kong is not for lifestyle. Hong Kong is for structure.
Corporate architecture.
Precisely. The briefing calls it the gateway to China, or my favorite analogy, the airlock.
An airlock between two different environments.
Think about it. On one side, you have African resources mines in Zambia, oil in Angola. On the other side, you have this enormous pool of Chinese capital that wants to invest in those resources. But that capital is stuck behind Beijing's very strict capital controls.
It's hard to get large sums of money out of mainland China.
Extremely hard, even for the giant state-owned enterprises, the SOEs. There's endless red tape. So what do? They use Hong Kong subsidiaries. They set up what are called special purpose vehicles, or SPVs, in Hong Kong.
And that lets them get the money out.
It lets them operate outside the mainland's direct financial supervision. It lets them access global capital markets. And crucially, it lets them transact in US dollars.
Which is still the language of global commodities.
It's the only language. You can't buy an Angolan oil block with Chinese yuan. Not yet, anyway. You need dollars. Hong Kong is a dollarized financial center on China's doorstep.
And the briefing mentions another key element, common law legitimacy. What does that mean?
This is a huge, often overlooked factor. As a legacy of British rule, Hong Kong's legal system is based on English common law. Mainland China's is not. If you are, say, an American pension fund looking to co-invest with a Chinese SOE in a Nigerian port project, you do not want that contract governed by the laws of mainland China.
Because you don't trust the courts to be independent.
That's the perception. You also don't want it governed by Nigerian law, for that matter. You want neutral, predictable ground. Hong Kong provides that. It provides a veneer of British legal respectability and predictability that makes Western partners comfortable. It purifies the deal.
But it has a very dark side. The file brings up the Queensway Group.
Ah, yes. The Queensway Syndicate, named for their office address at 88 Queensway in Hong Kong. This was a shadowy network fronted by a man named Sam Pak.
A fixer.
The ultimate fixer. He brokered billions in resources for infrastructure deals between China and African states, many of them run by corrupt regimes. And the operational base for creating the opaque corporate structures to facilitate these deals was Hong Kong.
So the payments to the fixers and the kickbacks to local officials were funneled through Hong Kong shell companies.
Exactly. And it's no surprise that the Panama Papers leaks revealed that Mossack Fonseca's single busiest office in the entire world wasn't in Panama. It was in Hong Kong. It was the factory floor for manufacturing the anonymous companies needed to grease the wheels of global commerce, both licit and illicit.
Okay, so Dubai is for the cash and physical assets. Hong Kong is for the corporate plumbing connecting to China. What about the third hub, Section 6? Singapore, the silent partner.
If Dubai is the brash, loud New York of this new empire, Singapore is its Geneva. It's quiet, it's discreet, it's expensive, and it projects an image of unimpeachable respectability.
It avoids that cowboy reputation.
Deliberately. Singapore's authorities would be horrified to be compared to Dubai. Their focus is on the very top of the pyramid, the ultra-high net worth individuals,
Right.
And their vehicle of choice is the family office.
Let's define that. A family office is essentially a private wealth management firm for a single super rich family.
That's right. It manages everything: investments, tax, inheritance, philanthropy. And Singapore has seen an explosion in them. The number went from around 700 to over 2,000 in just a couple of years.
And are African elites using these?
Yes. The ICIJ leaks name specific Singaporean firms like Aegis CD Trust and Portcullis TrustNet, who specialize in creating these structures for global clients, including prominent Africans.
And what's the appeal of a trust in Singapore over, say, a simple bank account?
The industry term is asset protection.
Which is a nice way of saying making it impossible for anyone else to get their hands on your money.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
When you place your assets into a Singaporean trust, you technically no longer own them. The trust does. You are merely a beneficiary. So if a new government comes to power back home and tries to freeze your assets for corruption,
You can say, sorry, I don't own a thing. You'll have to talk to my trust.
and that trust is governed by Singapore's very robust, very property rights legal system. It builds a legal firewall around the family fortune. The files link figures like the Zimbabwean tycoon Billy Rottenback to these kinds of structures. It's about locking down wealth for generations.
And Singapore also has a role in commodities, like Switzerland used to.
A huge role. The Trafigura model, as the brief calls it, the big commodity traders. Trafigura, Glencore. They used to be based almost exclusively in Switzerland. Many have moved their main trading desks to Singapore.
Why the move?
Very generous tax incentives under Singapore's Global Trader Program. But here's how it impacts Africa. An oil tanker might go from Angola directly to a port in China. The oil never goes anywhere near Singapore.
But the paperwork does.
The paperwork does. The deal's booked in Singapore. The money flows through Singapore. Profit is declared in Singapore, where it's taxed at a very, very low rate. The African nation gets the base price for its crude, but the much larger trading margin, the real profit, is captured offshore. It's another more sophisticated way of extracting value.
It's incredible how each hub has its own specialty, a whole ecosystem of extraction.
A diversified portfolio of offshore services. You use the right jurisdiction for the right purpose.
Which brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, Section 7, the mechanics of the pivot. We've talked about the destinations, but let's get granular on how these huge sums actually move. You can't put $88 billion in a suitcase.
Well, you can if it's gold.
True. But for everything else, the primary mechanism is something called trade-based money laundering, or TBML.
This is the invisible workhorse of capital flight. It is so effective because it hides in plain sight. It looks like legitimate international trade.
Can you walk me through an example? Let's make it concrete. I'm a business owner in, say, Kenya, and I have $5 million I need to move to my account in Dubai, but there are capital controls. How do I use TBML?
Okay, there are two classic methods, over-invoicing and under-invoicing. Let's start with under-invoicing. Let's say you export coffee.
Okay, I'm a coffee exporter.
You have a shell company in a Dubai free zone that you secretly control. You have a shipment of coffee that's really worth $2 million. You sell that coffee to your own Dubai shell company, but you create an invoice that says it's only worth $200,000.
So I'm selling it to myself for a tenth of its real value.
Right. The shipment leaves Kenya. The paperwork shows a $200,000 export. That money is wired back to Kenya, and everyone's happy. But the coffee is now in Dubai. Your Dubai company then sells it on to Starbucks for its real price, $2 million.
And the $1.8 million difference
Stays right there in your Dubai bank account. You've successfully moved it out of Kenya without a single suspicious wire transfer. You just moved coffee beans.
And over-invoicing is the reverse.
Even more common for getting cash out. Let's say you're importing used cars into Nigeria from Dubai. Your Dubai shell company buys a car for $10,000. It then creates an invoice selling that car to your Nigerian company for $110,000.
A $100,000 markup.
You take that inflated invoice to your Nigerian bank and say, I need to pay my supplier. The bank sees an official-looking invoice for a car import and approves the transfer of $110,000 US.
And just like that, you've moved $100,000 offshore.
Minus the cost of the car. And when customs at the port in Lagos see the car, are they going to know its true value? Are they going to argue with the official invoice? Probably not. You multiply that by thousands of transactions, and you see how the billions add up.
And Dubai's 40-plus free zones are the perfect environment for this.
There are black docks. Goods can come into a free zone, be repackaged, re-invoiced by a free zone company with a new price and a new country of origin, and then shipped out again. The paper trail is deliberately broken, making it almost impossible to trace the true value of anything.
It's weaponized bureaucracy.
It is, but here's the final crucial twist in the report. The part it calls the Western paradox. We call this whole phenomenon the Asian pivot. We talk about it as this new, non-Western system.
But that's not the whole story.
Not at all. Because when you walk into the law firms, the consultancies, the private banks in Dubai's DIFC or Singapore's Marina Bay, who is sitting behind the desks?
It's Western professionals, lawyers from London, bankers from New York.
Exactly. The architects of this new system are often the very same people who used to run the old one from London and Geneva. The big international law firms, the big four accounting firms, they didn't get defeated by this new system. They just relocated.
So they followed the money east.
As Western governments, under pressure from voters, started tightening the rules at home, the enabling industry, the accountants and lawyers who know how to set up these structures, they simply moved their operations to jurisdictions where the rules were more favorable.
So it's not a new system fighting the old one. It's the same global offshore infrastructure, just with a new headquarters.
It's the ultimate paradox. They've created a system that offers Western financial efficiency, but without the Western compliance headaches, the best of both worlds for their clients.
That's a powerful and pretty cynical conclusion. So where does this leave us? Let's try to synthesize this for the outro.
I think the main takeaway is that this post-West business arrangement is no longer a theory. It's a reality. Global finance can now operate at the highest levels entirely without Western approval or, frankly, Western moralizing.
And for the African continent, the consequences are enormous.
Profound. Yes, Africa is integrating with Asia, and there are many positive aspects to that.
Yeah.
But this specific financial integration is facilitating a capital flight on a scale that actively undermines the continent's development. The financial plumbing is designed to suck value out, not to reinvest it locally.
It's a high-tech pipeline pointed outward.
That's a perfect description. And until African nations develop their own internal financial systems and rule of law to a point where their own elites feel safe keeping their money at home, this pipeline will just keep flowing.
It's a sobering analysis. We've covered the $88 billion number, the gold laundering, the immunity as a service model, the corporate airlocks in Hong Kong, and the silent vaults in Singapore. It's a stunningly clear picture of how the world really works.
And it leaves you with that one big unanswered question. Can the West even do anything to stop it now? Or has this parallel system become too big, too powerful, and too geopolitically essential to ever be reined in?
A chilling thought. And one for a future briefing. For today, this has been an incredibly deep dive.
The world map has definitely been redrawn.
Case file closed. The bigger the empire, the harder the fall. Stay ahead of the curve. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your intelligence analysis in the comments. Your contribution is vital to this lab. New briefings available every Saturday. You've been listening to Corporate Files, briefings on AI, business, and geopolitics.